The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, Episode 31.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. Today we're discussing Chapter 6 of Star Wars The Mandalorian, titled The Prisoner. And joining me on the panel today are Angela Cialana. Hi, Angela.
Hey, Father. Great to be back.
Next, we have Mike Creevy. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Father.
And finally, this evening, we have Andrew Hermes. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Father. It's good to be back as well.
Absolutely. Thomas is unfortunately not able to join us, so this is our crew tonight. So tonight we are discussing Episode 6, Chapter 6 of The Mandalorian, entitled The Prisoner. And Disney's simple summary is this. The Mandalorian joins a crew of mercenaries on a dangerous mission. First of all, I just love how incredibly vague those single sentences are. But that's kind of the point. So I found it to be quite a fun episode. I read online that someone had pointed out that it was almost like if you were to merge Ocean's 11 and The Predator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
So I enjoyed that. I really enjoy kind of a heist plot, so that was really fun. And then kind of the swap midway through it just added a bunch of intrigue to the whole plot of the episode. So what'd you guys think of the episode in general?
I thought that the episode was a lot of fun, like you said. I think just the overarching story about the show or why audiences, I think, are starting to become a little divided on the show is that something that I brought up in an earlier podcast is that the show is really establishing itself to be very episodic and not so much just one linear. Well, it is linear, but it's not focusing on the just one main plot. It's very story of the week, villain of the week, as we've discussed before. And even I find myself still having some issues with that. But if I just look at the episode itself, it was great. It was wonderful. It was like, I love stories that kind of confine, the characters in one, some small space. And it started off as like a rescue mission, then it turned into a horror movie. So I love when, genres can kind of meld together like that for an episode. And it reminded me of a lot of other movies that I like. And it totally reminded me of the Darth Vader scene at the end of Rogue One when all the doors shut and the lights, flashed red. And, but obviously it was the Mandalorian had the upper hand in this case and not the bad guys. But yeah, overall, I thought this was, I think, Rick Famuyiwa's, if I'm saying that right, his second episode that he's directed. I thought he did a killer job with all the sequences, basically all taking place in that prison. Still not enough Baby Yoda, but we did get some cool moments from him. Especially, we thought he used his Force powers at the end there. I'm sure we'll get to that. So that was we had our Baby Yoda moment there. But overall, I did enjoy the episode a lot. And I thought Bill Burr was a great casting choice, and we'll probably talk about that some more. But overall, I love the episode.
Cool. See, I wish Dom were here to kind of comment on the Boston thing.
Yeah,
as a fellow Bostonian. But I agree with everything Andrew said. I would just add the only thing I wanted to mention, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more later. But I personally really just think it's neat to see this conflict with Mando, where you do have kind of the bigger story that we were kind of aware of, but also like he needs to get fuel. Like he's in this sort of desperate, like he has to work, but he can't work. And the more he works, the more he's ending up in situations where he can't work with those people. So he's burning bridges kind of everywhere he goes as he's on this kind of moral, dare I say, sort of moral development. And then, in every situation he's in where he has to kind of keep moving down that path and keep applying all that stuff that he's kind of built up to, but it becomes increasingly difficult because especially in this one where he's around all these people who are absolutely not, playing by the same rules he is. So that's something I'm really enjoying to see that, especially.
Yeah, and I love the episode as well. The music was awesome, this episode, and I loved all the little Easter eggs and cameos and cool things that popped up throughout the episode. So looking forward to really diving in.
Awesome. Yeah, I fully expect in the next 2 episodes we're going to get quite a bit more of Baby Yoda and the larger overarching story. I mean, you'd think that they wouldn't set that up in the first 3 episodes and then just not let it pay off until season 2. So I expect that will happen, but I guess we'll have to just wait and see. And I guess, yeah, the other thing that I wanted to throw in there was that, Angela, I think you had mentioned before at some point that this is a bit of a scary episode.
Yeah.
And I got that message from you before I watched it the first time. And so I watched it the first time and I sort of was confused because I didn't find it that scary. But I think a couple things had to happen for me. First of all, I'm an adult, and so I just naturally am not necessarily as scared by this. But I also realized that I had to watch it 2 different ways. That the first time that I watched it, I naturally empathized with Mando and his position, and the team members that he ends up hunting down, I did not empathize with. So I was not sharing their fear of being hunted until I watched it a second time and had to throw myself into their position, and especially when he approaches Mayfield and you have that flashing light. Once I put myself in Mayfield's position, I was like, oh, okay, this is why this is quite terrifying to have a Mandalorian after you.
Yeah. So just for context, I had messaged everybody on our panel beforehand because we've talked about watching it with kids. And I was also seeing it from the Baby Yoda perspective of Baby Yoda was kind of in danger by himself in this scary situation too. And plus some of the characters, especially the Devronian character, were a little bit frightening. So yeah, I just thought, I'll just give him a heads up on that. But
cool. So just another general point before we jump into the recap. This is episode 6, so there are only 2 more episodes of this season to go. And next week, episode 7 drops on Wednesday, or this week, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. Episode 7 releases on Wednesday, just ahead of the theatrical release of The Rise of Skywalker. And so just listeners, just so that you're aware of what we're planning on doing, is we are planning on reviewing Chapter 7 of The Mandalorian after we've seen The Rise of Skywalker. So we plan to, if there are connections to be made between Chapter 7 and The Rise of Skywalker, we fully plan to kind of tease some of those out. And then we will be doing a kind of initial thoughts run through of The Rise of Skywalker as the next episode of the podcast before coming around to land with Chapter 8 of The Mandalorian the following week. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the recap here. And so the episode starts off with Mando and Baby Yoda in the Razor Crest arriving at this space station, and we're introduced to Ran, who seems to have already some history with Mando. He knows him, but he also just calls him Mando, which everybody is calling him Mando now. So that's my default when I'm referring to him anymore, is just Mando. And Mando has reached out to him for a job. He obviously still needs money. He needs food. He needs fuel. He's got 2 mouths to feed, and so he lands on the space station and talks to Ran about this job that he's going to do for him. And Ran has already heard that Mando is on the outs with the guild, and so that knowledge has already shifted across these circles. Everybody seems to already know that Mando is in this fragile position with the guild. But Ran has a policy of no questions, and so he doesn't pursue it anymore. And the job that he is putting together is they are putting together a crew to rescue what Ran calls an associate. And he has 4 people, but he needs a 5th plus a ship, and that's where Mando comes in with the Razor Crest.
Father, can I just make a quick comment on the guy who plays Rand? Just in passing, because he looked familiar, and I looked him up because I thought I knew who he was, but it's Mark Boone Jr., who's been in a bunch of things. He was in Memento, and I remember him really well from Batman Begins. He's Commissioner Gordon when he's still a lieutenant or a detective. He's his like dirty partner, and I just I always laugh like certain typecasting because that guy just seems like a seedy dude, you know. Like he always seems to play like that. And I always wonder with people like that, I was like, is he just a really great actor? Is that what he's like? You know, because I don't know. It just, for some reason, he really like instantly, I thought, had the kind of credibility for that kind of role. It just felt like it was a good fit, you know, right. And it just went right into it so quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was also on Sons of Anarchy. So
right. Yeah.
So that right there tells you, the type of roles that he's getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, it's funny you bring up Batman because I saw a lot of Batman connections in this episode. So maybe I'll talk about that at the end.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I'd like to hear that.
I did too, actually.
Same here.
Okay. Nice.
It was supposed to happen, I guess.
So after Mando gets that initial kind of breakdown of what's happening, we are introduced to the first member of the team, who is Mayfield. And he is more or less the leader of the crew. Rand has given him that position, and something that was happening between this whole conversation, they were referencing Mando's early years. Rand was talking about some of the jobs that they had done when they were younger, and they made a comment that Mando found those early jobs. What he got out of those early jobs was target practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that was sort of interesting because I think what was happening, or at least what I kind of took, was the episode as a whole is showing how he has changed. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because Rand at one point says to Mando explicitly, "You haven't changed one bit." And I kept thinking, I'm pretty sure he has.
Yeah.
And I think we see that kind of played out throughout the episode. But there's obviously history there and jobs that they've done in the past that perhaps he wasn't quite as merciful in his earlier years. There's also a random comment about Mayfield being a former Imperial sharpshooter, which is kind of a fun quip because stormtroopers are not known to be.
What would that have been?
Sharpshooters.
I wasn't a stormtrooper.
Yeah, he's heard that before.
Yeah.
I just want to bring up again. Yeah. Since we're talking about Mayfield, Bill Burr, I think, it's very easy, like when you have these sort of roles given to like a recognizable, especially a comedian who's known more for his stand-up than his acting. Mm-hmm. It's easy to be like, when you're watching the episode, oh, well, that's Bill Burr. There he is again. It's Bill Burr. But I felt that he killed the role and he was surrounded by a lot of characters that kind of played it over the top, in a good way. Yeah. The Twi'lek siblings, and Barg was that his name? Yeah.
Berg.
Obviously very over the top, Star Wars over the top in a good way, like Palpatine's is the most over the top character and he's like one of the best characters. But I felt like, although he was like scummy, like these guys were, he was kind of more grounded, maybe not as scummy. He kind of, you can tell he had somewhat of a moral compass. Like there's that scene, later on in the episode where he's like, "Hey, we have to save your sister too, right?" And when he's talking to Quinn, and Quinn is like, just kind of ignores it and is like, "No, let's get out of here." And his response to that was like, "Oh, nice family." It kind of surprised him. So it shows that he doesn't always look out for number one. That's probably why he was the leader of the group. You could tell he has those qualities. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to shout out Bill Burr playing Mayfield in that role. I thought he did an excellent job.
Well, and since you brought that up too, Mayfield, the character name, I don't know if you guys know that Bill Burr, a while back, he actually defended a Cleveland Browns football player who was named Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield
on this show, and so he was kind of like, people took notice of that particular instance, and it was on Colin Cowherd's show. So I just thought that was probably a reference to to that situation, that he really kind of like he stood his ground in that particular. I don't know. There was like this kind of a criticism over the player, but I thought that was a neat kind of tie-in with the name Mayfeld. So
I did like, by the way, how utterly unimpressed with Mando the Deveronian is from the get-go. He's just like tiny, just walks away. Like they made it very. And it doesn't Berg mean mountain, like in German? Like it's just.
Oh,
I think so.
Oh,
right?
Maybe
like
very well could be. I mean, you have like
so just that like big dude, That's it,
Well, and I loved how they referred to him as the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He told that. Yeah, and yeah, he mentions to Mando, like he makes a comment like, "Oh, I thought Mandalorians are supposed to be these great warriors," and he's like, "Well, why are they all dead?" So it's like it's like a reference to the Purge, and it kind of I got the sense that maybe he obviously maybe Mando wasn't there during that time, and maybe there's some guilt associated with that. And, I think that throughout the episode and like the previous episodes, he's struggling to find out what his identity is, because everyone has this conception of what a Mandalore is, and he doesn't quite fit that anymore. And you can, and him running into, his old, maybe these guys were like his old family. It looks like he had a lot of adventures with these other scummy mercenary types, and he obviously doesn't fit in anymore. I think even though, like I've mentioned, the nature of these episodes seem to be not too focused on the overall story, pushing it forward, I think where it does succeed in that is showing us these little tidbits, these little emotional moments of Mando kind of, maybe reflecting on, times that have gone by where he felt like, oh, maybe like I mentioned, he wasn't there during the Purge, and he lost a lot of people that, a lot of loved ones during that time, and he has some guilt associated with that, and then obviously it's very obvious that he left them on bad terms, and he was coming back, and maybe we'll get to find out what really happened between them, or maybe not, but at least we're getting these little insights into what's going on with himself and his identity crisis.
Well, and I think if you wanted to say that there was like the constant sort of plot line throughout all of these episodes would be like, who is Mando?
Yeah.
Because each of these episodes tends to like focus in on, I mean, they keep referencing his helmet and who's the man behind the helmet. And even we are probably questioning like, who is he? Or, in this episode, who was he back when he was with the Shion and that group? And they keep making those references to the man behind the mask, and so I think that could be an underlying plot throughout the whole thing. Plus, Baby Yoda is the other huge underlying plot behind everything.
And on that note too, Father, the Bill Burr's Gungan reference had me in stitches. That whole like, maybe he's a Gungan. You so afraid to have your helmet? Like I just thought to have him be able to deliver like a Gungan jab was.
And all I could
awesome.
visualize was Jar Jar at that point.
Yep, that was great.
Oh my gosh!
But at that point too, we're introduced to the other members of the team. Berg, the Daveronian that we've already mentioned. They have a droid named Zero, and Shion, who is a Twi'lek, and she's the one that has the connection with Mando from the past. She immediately draws a knife on him. And it's sort of unclear why, but I think it's revealed sort of later on, of course, that Mando is the reason that her brother was left behind and captured or imprisoned. And that seems to be why she drew the knife on him. But how that happened, we don't really know. But it also implies that Mando and Shion may have been close, more than just friends, but we're not entirely sure what that is at all either.
He doesn't exactly deny any of it.
He doesn't really say much in general,
but he's quiet, right?
But she also doesn't rat him out.
No.
If there was anything that was happening.
Did you guys catch it's the same actress that played Tonks in Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Which was cool because you can't really tell with the makeup, but yeah, that was kind of neat.
There was a lot of the actors and actresses in this whole episode have all sorts of fun and random connections. So we kind of have a shift there. They've met the team, and Zero is going to be the one to pilot the ship, which visibly upsets Mando just a little bit. I would be similarly upset if someone was going to take the pilot's role of my vehicle. But Zero's going to pilot the ship because there's some fun, crazy maneuvers that they have to do in order to get into the blind spot to land on the prison ship, New Republic prison ship that they're going to break a prisoner out of. And in fact, I wrote in my notes that I didn't realize that the Razor Crest was that agile to see that whole little scene play out.
Yeah, I think part of the purpose of this episode was to really give us some information about the Razor Crest, because they did talk about what it can do, and we see what it can do too. And then Father, I guess you had mentioned before we recorded that they call it a ghost. Yeah, like it can be off the radar, it was, I guess, pre-Imperial, and apparently when the Empire took over, they impounded ships and they made sure that they only knew what ships were out there. So the fact that the Razor Crest wasn't impounded, I think Zero kind of mentions that, is interesting. And then I think it was, I keep wanting to say Bill Burr, but Mayfeld calls it like something that, like a Canto Bite slot machine or something like that.
Machine.
Yeah. That was funny.
Do you guys, I'm just curious. I'm not too clear yet, because the way they've talked about the Razor Crest, I'm not entirely clear if that's the name of that ship or if it's the kind of ship it is. Because I feel like in the very first episode, when he's walking over to it and we see it for the first time, and he's got, was it Mithril or whatever that character that he was taking, the blue guy? Mm-hmm. And he's like, Razor Crest, pre-Imperial. Like, it sounded more like, because he wouldn't have seen Mando's ship before, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm just not too clear on that yet. If that's like the make or model of that ship or the name of it.
So this is coming from StarWars.com. I just Googled it quick, and it doesn't really answer the question, but StarWars.com says it's a former military craft used to patrol local territories in the time before the Empire. The Razor Crest is the Mandalorian's trusty transport and living quarters as he scours the Outer Rim for fugitives to catch.
Okay.
I would sort of imply that would be the name of the ship, not the model, but...
Right, yeah. Oh, I don't know. It's still pretty cool. I like how it almost has like a 50s, like a 1950s, like the chrome, it just kind of somehow captures that, like for us watching it, it's just kind of neat.
Yeah. And to just state this explicitly, Angela, I'm not sure if you did, but Zero references the Razor Crest as a ghost. And for those of us who have seen Star Wars Rebels, that's a very cool connection to the ghost from the ship that they use in the animated series of the Star Wars Rebels. So at that whole point, though, where they're discussing the ship and why they need to use it, they also mention that the prison ship that they're supposed to infiltrate is completely manned by droids. And so that kind of plays a role in the episode as it goes along. So that was important to point out.
This is Dom Bettinelli, CEO of SQPN, with a special message. The StarQuest Network is fulfilling its mission to explore the intersection of faith and pop culture, and in the past year we've reached stunning new heights. Our programs are reaching broad new audiences with a message that helps us discern good entertainment, make sense of the world, and share the gospel with others. We continue to launch new shows and bring back great shows. We just relaunched Secrets of Star Wars, which comes at the perfect moment to capture the excitement over the new show, The Mandalorian, and the climax of the new Star Wars movies. The support of our audience is vital to this work and has helped us grow closer to meeting our financial obligations. For that, we are very grateful. But we still need to close the gap. Every new gift extends our deadline, but until we eliminate our deficits, the future of StarQuest and your favorite shows remain in question. This is why it's crucial we hear from you this Advent and Christmas, the time when nonprofits receive most of their support for the year. If you're already a supporter of StarQuest, we are very grateful, and we ask you to prayerfully consider increasing your support at this time. If you are not yet a supporter, please become one now. We urgently need your help and every gift counts. Could you give $15 or even just $10 per month? That lets us provide more than 40 hours of professionally produced shows with compelling content. We have special thank you gifts for donors at several giving levels. If you are a business owner or just want to provide a leadership level of support, we now have a special giving level for sponsors, like in public broadcasting. For $500 per month, you or your business can sponsor one of the shows on our network. Listeners will hear a message in every episode thanking you for your sponsorship and giving your website. We'll also have your name and link on the SQPN webpage and in the show notes of every episode during your sponsorship. Whatever level of support you can offer, whether large or small, please show your support for SQPN this Christmas, and remember that your gifts are tax deductible. Just go to sqpn.com/give. That's sqpn.com/give. And may God bless you and yours as we approach the celebration of our Lord's birth.
And then we get the next scene where they are on board the ship and Zero takes them into hyperspace heading towards the prison vessel. And we have this interesting dialogue between all of them where they're all just giving Mando a really hard time. And I felt really bad for Mando. And again, they were referencing his past. Shion says to ask Mando about the job on Alzok 3. Basically she says Mando says that he did what he had to do, and she tells him that he liked what he did and she knows who he really is. And so what happened, we don't know, but again, she's kind of claiming to know who Mando is, and I think that's not who he is now. Maybe it was who he was then. And they also start to mock him about his helmet, and they mocked him about Shion actually mocks saying this is the way.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because they've made reference to like how he was sort of a little bit more of like a bad guy type of when he was in his younger days, but then at the same time he still I guess talked about the way of the Mandalorians. So it's interesting to kind of get that window into who was he in the past, and then just the fact it's almost like, somebody who grew up in a certain religion or faith, and then, they sort of they don't really live it 100%, but then sometimes they don't cross a certain line because of their faith or their upbringing. So that's kind of what it reminded me of.
Well, and I was going to say roughly the exact same thing, that it felt like a religious attack. Mm-hmm. And I think and I'm sure many of the listeners would be in the similar situation of being teased or mocked for our Catholic faith. Whether or not, we were in high school and we were Catholic in name only, which many of us probably were, but still that meant we had a moral code that we weren't going to cross. And so, yeah, I that one hit maybe more than all the other mocking. That's also the point where they ask if he's a Gungan underneath his helmet. And Mayfield tries to get Berg to physically take off Mando's helmet. Thankfully, he doesn't succeed. And then at that point, when he is trying to take off his helmet, that's when we finally see Baby Yoda for the first time in the entire episode. Mm-hmm. And I was slightly worried about him for the first 10 minutes of the episode, but he's okay. But they find him. And again, they're still just kind of making fun of him and asking him if he has a pet. And there was also an interesting point that someone online made that they, not Mando, but the other crew members also see Baby Yoda and don't really know what or who he is. Mm-hmm. And so it's very much implied that even the Yoda species is sort of a mystery and unknown, even within the Star Wars universe. So he's obviously rare.
The only ones we've ever seen were, Yoda and, what was it, Yaddle, I think, on the council. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if there aren't more of them than those two, none of these people would have ever seen them. So it is kind of like, what?
Yeah, and they also, somebody says maybe that code of yours has made you soft, because he has a quote unquote pet, so another part of that whole attack on his beliefs.
And I think this plays into the story as it goes along, and I'll mention it here. But I think this speaks to Mando's character, is that he is being ridiculed and mocked, and yet he has sort of adopted his team as his family. And he, we'll see as the episode goes on, that he takes out those 4 droids, those security droids on the prison ship, for his teammates. And in fact, Mayfield calls him off from even helping him out. But so he's willing to fight for his teammates, even though they seem to ridicule and mock him. And that's not reciprocated. And I think that points to Mando's own, his philosophy, his idea on who family is and his tribe and his connection. And it's only when they betray him that he turns on them.
Yeah, I think I kind of took it as he has a standard, and also he's doing a job. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to, he has a certain level of respect that he gives to people that he's working with, as we saw in the last episode as well. And so even though, they're jerks to him, he's still not going to do anything to them that, they don't, well, we'll get into that more, I guess, as we get into the episode.
He also responds, I guess that probably one of the best ways to respond to bullies is by just not engaging. So they do drop out of hyperspace, and Zero did a poor job of informing everybody, and everybody goes flying. And I almost yelled out in surprise when Baby Yoda fell to the ground.
Yeah, playing with fire.
Yeah, but thankfully he was all right. They land
He took it like a champ.
He probably used the Force and just create a little cushion, So they land on the prison ship, and Mando is the one who manages to open the hatch, and they drop into the prison ship led by Mayfield. And all 4 of them, Mayfield, Shion, Berg, and Mando, drop down into the prison ship, and Zero stays on the ship and gives them directions to the control room, because they have to figure out where on the ship the prisoner is that they're trying to rescue. And I had an odd sort of Siri moment. They were walking down one of the hallways, and Zero's like, turn left at the next juncture. And I was like, well, Siri's a bit nicer sounding than Zero, but Zero's leading them on to the control room. And they pass by a number of prisoners. They see a few droids. In fact, they encounter a mouse droid that sort of is a jump scare and surprises them.
Oh, among the prisoners, I just want to mention there was an Ardenian, the four-armed monkey kind of character that we saw that same species as Rio, which was Jon Favreau's character in Han Solo, the Solo movie. So yeah, I just thought that was a cool little reference.
They could have thrown in a bunch of cameos from random prisoners.
Yeah.
One of them was an Imperial, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was.
Something about him creeped me out.
So they get spooked by a mouse droid at the end of that corridor, and Berg shoots it, and that causes them to be discovered and attacked by all these security droids. And that was the fight that I was referencing earlier, where they start shooting at these droids, and Mando sneaks around behind them and takes all 4 of those droids out, and Mayfield sort of calls the other teammates off from helping. I think he was sort of just evaluating how good Mando was against 4 droids. And Mando definitely won that battle. So after that, they arrive at the control room, and they are told by Zero that there is 1 organic on board, and that organic is within the control room. And they charge in anyway, and they encounter a New Republic officer named Davin. And they quickly discover that they need to be looking at cell 221. And I don't know if that had any significance, but that's where they had to go. But then there's a standoff between Davin and Mayfield and Mando. And Davin is trying to get Mando and his crew to stand down, and Mayfield is trying to get Davin to stand down. And there was some interesting dialogue that happened there. That was where Mando was trying to find a way to resolve the situation without killing. And so I think that was one of those moments where we find out that he is not the same as he was in the past. And Davin holds up a tracking beacon and is threatening to push it. And if he pushes it, the New Republic is going to be on them within about 20 minutes. And the standoff sort of continues until Shihan just throws a knife and kills the New Republic officer. And she just ignores both Mando and Mayfield in that whole situation. And that was something that I was not expecting. I sort of kept seeing Shihan as like an unpredictable character. At one point, one of the other team members called her crazy, and I kept having the name of just Chaos. I kept calling her Chaos because she was so like just off the wall, and kind of, Andrew, you mentioned she was kind of her personality was over the top, and so I kept seeing her as kind of this unpredictable character, and she kind of scared me.
The word that kept coming to mind for me was just repulsive. Like she's just an absolutely like repulsive character, just freaking me out.
She really reminded me of Catwoman. She was hissing a lot.
Yeah.
She kind of had this sort of way that she moved that was kind of like a cat, and she had those little dagger things, sort of like Catwoman as well. And she was a little bit like flirtatious at the beginning. Plus, they had these mouse droid things, so I picked up on the cat and mouse type of sort of little, I don't know what that would be motif, but yeah, that was one of the Batman connections that I picked up on. I really felt like she reminded me a lot of Catwoman.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, I was definitely going to compare her to Catwoman right before you said that. Yeah, so yeah.
In one way, I was comparing her to, now hear me out on this, my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, because she's doing this thing now where every time she gets frustrated, she really like, ah! And she just keeps like doing that over and over and over again. I'm frustrated. So like so many times, and I noticed it the second time I watched it, so many times where Shihan's just like, ah! And I'm like, okay, just calm down. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's not Noelle. It's yeah, okay. It's just funny.
I think they kind of, just to wrap up the little cat thing, I think they kind of really, for me, emphasized that at the end, because at the very end of the episode, we see the 3 of them in that prison cell, and it looks like a cat in a cage to me. Like she hisses at the camera. So
I'm gonna have to rewatch it now. So she kills Davin just flat out. And we learn quickly that as he died, or right before he died, he hits the tracking beacon. And Zero comes on the intercoms to inform them that they have 20 minutes to find the prisoner and escape before the New Republic is going to be breathing down their necks. So they run off to cell 221, and we see the scene why Berg is called the Muscle. There's that huge droid, whatever it is, and he just picks it up and throws it into the other one, and like all the explosions are going off behind him, and
that was over the top for sure.
Yeah, Bill Burr's just like, oh.
Yeah. And he's played by Clancy Brown, who's done a lot of voice acting for Star Wars, but this is his first live action role, and a lot of people remember him from Highlander back in the day. But yeah, I thought he was just great. He just chewed up the scenery every scene he was in.
Yeah, well, since you went there, he just to point this out to people, he was the voice of Ryder Azadi in Star Wars Rebels. He was the voice of Montross in the video game Star Wars Bounty Hunter, and he was in the Clone Wars, and I'm blanking on the name of his character. I think Mike, you had mentioned it.
Sauvage Opress.
One of my favorite
Very
names.
subtle.
It's literally, for those who don't know, it's literally just Savage Opress, but we make it like French or something. I don't know.
But yeah, but he
France, or I don't know.
He's one of the Clone Wars, one of the 3 Clone Wars connections that I saw. So him, and then Matt Lanter, who was the voice of Anakin Skywalker, played Davin.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him with the egghead hat on. And then at the end we got Dave Filoni too. So
yes,
and also the evil prison guard. He played the evil prison guard in Shawshank Redemption. Probably what most people would recognize him in.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's right. He's also Mr. Krabs on SpongeBob.
Yes.
Did Dave Filoni do other voice acting roles?
I thought, didn't he do Chopper?
He was
Oh,
Chopper.
Yeah.
And he played a ton of little cameos here and there on Clone Wars and Rebels. So
moving on, they open the cell, and we realize that the prisoner that they're meant to help escape is Quinn, who is a Twi'lek who looks an awful lot like Shion, and we very quickly realize that it is Shion's brother. And it's revealed in that moment that Mando left him behind on a previous job long ago, and it's sort of implied that that's why he's in the position that he is now. And they all immediately gang up on Mando and throw him in the cell and shut the door and leave him behind. Which was very sad.
Yeah, no discussion.
Well, but they had already planned that out beforehand.
Well, I wonder, did you guys notice when he was first unlocking the door in the Razor Crest, they're whispering off to the side, and she's like giggling, like I was wondering if it's just that, like, hey, let's leave him here, you know?
Yeah, at first I thought they were just making fun of him, like they're probably just cracking jokes, but then after that scene, I was like, oh yeah, they were probably planning this, from the beginning.
I don't think this breaking the prisoner out, I don't think this was a 5-person job. I think it was getting the Mando, getting revenge on the Mando was a 4-person job. So I think that's why they had that many people. I mean, obviously they wanted his ship, but I think it was to get back at him. So
a number of things then happen in kind of quick succession. Zero cleans up a transmission from the Razor Crest from Grief Karga. So the transmission from Chapter 3, where Grief Karga is telling Mando to deliver the asset directly to the client in reference to Baby Yoda. And so Zero realizes that there's something about Mando that they can use against him. And Mando very quickly escapes the cell by reeling in a passing security droid and using its security clearance in the computer socket within the cell. And someone online was pointing out that there's this whole kind of visual shift that happens. There was this when he pulls the droid over and like pulls the arm out of its socket, like there's this oil liquid that spews everywhere and gets on the wall, the pristine white walls, and it's like, and then after that, Mando makes it to the control center and kills the power, and so then everything turns red and dark, and there's this shift in the genre of the story and the whole feeling of the prison ship.
It's like Ridley and Alien, like just
and there was a
Ripley. I'm sorry, Ridley. I'm thinking Ridley Scott.
Ripley, right? Yeah,
Ripley.
Yeah.
There was a parallel happening though on the Razor Crest between Zero, who has discovered Baby Yoda because he shows up in the cockpit and then he disappears, and then Zero is sort of the hunter hunting Baby Yoda, and Mando becomes the hunter hunting the other crew members.
Yeah, it was a great duality of hide and seek. Yeah, 2 hide and seek sequences going on back and forth. Yeah, I thought that was really well edited.
Did you guys get the sense that possibly Baby Yoda scrambled the comm system, and that was right before? So the comms get scrambled on the Razor Crest, and then Zero's like, oh, I don't have any connection with you guys anymore. You're on your own. Right. And then he turns around and Baby Yoda's right there. And he's like, curious. And that's when he starts, that's when that whole hide and seek sort of thing begins. But I wondered if Baby Yoda interfered with that.
Wow, I didn't think of that at all. Yeah, I just assumed that he still Mando has still some sort of connection to his ship that he was able to, smash the communications. That's what I assumed. But that's my first guess would be, I don't know if Baby Yoda would be that aware of the situation, because he's still
I don't know.
Baby Yoda. But I mean, there's a lot we don't know about him, so you could very well be right about that.
He seems to not even know about himself yet.
Yeah, right.
He's trying things though. He seems to think he can heal Mando's cut. I don't know.
That's
it's
right.
just It's just fun.
I was sort of just under the assumption that Mando had done something in the control room, but Baby Yoda's full of surprises. So then, and I thought it was really funny at that point that Zero is talking to the crew members, and he realizes that the communications are out, and yet he still finishes the whole sentence. As if,
such a droid.
Yeah. Few moments of comic relief in the building terror of the episode. And then we kind of shift back to the crew members who are running, and Mando is sort of intentionally closing doors on them and seemingly intentionally isolating them out, and then pursuing them one-on-one, which was again, when I watched it from the eyes of the crew members, that was like, okay, this is intense.
That's one of the reviewers on IGN made, I thought, a really good point, that it's like, after all these episodes of us really getting close to Mando, now being able to see him just for a minute the way his bounties see him. You know, like this reputation that he built up that we landed right in the middle of in the first episode. It's like, this is why. So that was pretty cool.
We also get the dialogue between Mayfield and Quinn, where Mayfield asks him about his sister and whether or not he wants to rescue her, more or less, and he basically says he doesn't care if his sister makes it off the ship or not, and wants to get off. And then we have the beginning of the encounters between Mando and the various crew members, and the first one is Berg, who arrives in the control room looking for Mando. And Mando is above in the air ducts, and kind of uses he's got that I don't even know what you call it, like it's like
a grappling thing,
yeah,
like a I don't know, yeah,
but he pulls him out of the air vent, and they have this fight, and it takes 2 blast doors to finally kind of put Berg in his place. And did you guys feel like Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi with the Rancor?
Oh, I didn't catch that. But
when
I
the
can
first
see
blast
that.
door comes down on Berg, that was the visual going through my head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the flamethrower in the face, and then he's just like, ah. I'm like, okay,
and the whistling
he's fireproof.
birds.
Yeah.
Did you notice the whistling birds didn't work?
Nope.
It did.
I was like, what is this thing?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, he actually had some more of those precious whistling birds, and they just went to waste.
Well, and he used a lot of them, so I
did.
I don't know if he has any left. But he wins the fight, and it takes both blast doors to put him down. And we're sort of assuming that he died in that, but we find out later that he didn't. The next encounter that we get is between Mando and Xi'an, and that was, we have this fun knife throwing encounter between the two of them, which was really fun to watch. But again, Mando just totally has the upper hand, uses one of her knives and grabs her and holds it to her throat. And then we move on to the next scene. Let's see, who's next? The next one would be Mando's encounter with Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was...
That was so great.
It was...
Was that another Batman reference for you guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was... If you remember, yeah, it was that scene, it was a Dark Knight Rises, right? When they're going in the sewers. And that, strobe thing.
Yes.
Exactly.
Like that. It's so cool.
Just like Batman.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like stalking him. And then right at the end, Mayfeld screams, "No!"
It's like he realizes, no, there's no way.
Yeah, and it was I also got the Batman sort of vibes, because if you notice, every time at the end of every battle he had with each one of those characters, you weren't sure if Mando killed them or not.
Right.
It was kind of like teased, like, oh, was that a lethal blow? And then obviously you see them like in Batman fashion. Nope, the bad guys are locked up conveniently together, so ripe for the New Republic to come and find them, just like Batman would do for Jim Gordon, many times. So yeah, that was and it also reminded me of the scene.
No, I was just going to say that the writers are obviously trying to misdirect us too, because when Mando finds Quinn at the entrance to the Razor Crest, Quinn tells Mando, he says, "You killed the others," and Mando just responds with, "They got what they deserved." So he doesn't deny it,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right.
but he doesn't affirm it either.
That's the neat justice play there, right? Because I was thinking about that, our the catechism, definition really of just that idea of giving someone what is their due. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that idea, like a little window into like, where's Mando at right now in the notion of justice?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not some kind of vengeance thing. It's just like, I don't need to kill these people. I just need to get them in the cell and get out of here, And so that was kind of cool.
Well, and even, I mean, you could potentially say mercy too, that,
right.
he didn't kill them when, maybe that would have been the standard thing to do in that kind of a situation.
Eye for an eye.
Right.
Because they did kill that New Republic officer. So.
Yeah. And he could have killed them all. Well, maybe not Berg. We just don't know. we don't know what that takes.
Right.
So, maybe the others.
So Mando encounters Quinn there at the entrance to the Razor Crest, and Quinn tries to protect himself and lays down his weapon and goes quietly with Mando rather than be killed, is what he's assuming Mando is going to do. And all the while throughout this, Zero is hunting Baby Yoda, which was, again, its own little sort of terrifying but cute sort of thing that was happening. Like Baby Yoda's hiding behind one of the crates in the ship, and Zero is opening other doors and not finding him, and Zero eventually does find Baby Yoda, and he's in his little cubby place where he sleeps. And that's where we have this scene where Baby Yoda seems to attempt to use the Force on Zero. And no idea what he was intending to do, just knock him over or what. And my first thought was that he actually succeeded in destroying Zero when he exploded, but that was Mando actually shooting Zero from behind.
And he looks at his little hand.
He does.
Wow. What am I capable of?
So Mando finally has possession of his ship again. He's got possession of Quinn.
Father, I'm so sorry. Can I just, before I forget, because one thing I just realized, that's how they met, right? Like basically, where Mando shoots a droid who's trying to kill him, very specifically.
Yeah.
Good
point. That's cool. A little homage.
They're probably reminiscing on that right now and bonding. So Mando heads back to the space station to deliver Quinn to Ron. And he gets his money and tells Ron that the no questions policy is in effect when Ron tries to ask what happened to the rest of the team. And we very quickly see that Ron has no intention of letting Mando escape. And so Mando leaves with his ship, and Ron tells someone on an intercom to kill him. And we see the ship rise up and get ready to take off after Mando. And in that moment, Quinn hears the beeping of the tracking beacon that Mando had left on his body. And they quickly realize that the New Republic is going to show up and take them down. And as Mando is leaving the system, 3 X-Wing fighters arrive, tracking the beacon to the station, and very quickly destroy the gunship that they see taking off, and which in turn destroys the station. And those 3 were very important cameos. And we were kind of talking about this before the podcast started, that Dave Filoni is the one that all of us tended to recognize right off the bat, minus the cowboy hat and in a New Republic helmet. But the other 2 were Rick Famuyiwa. I'm sorry, I just butchered that. But he is the director for this episode. Dave Filoni wrote and directed Chapter 5, and then the 3rd X-Wing pilot is the actress there is Deborah Chow, who directed Chapter 3. So
who's doing the Obi-Wan show too? Yeah.
Yep.
So fun fact about that: the names that they're credited with. So Dave's character is called Trapper Wolf, and we all know Dave Filoni loves wolves. Rick Famuyiwa's character is called Jib Dodger. So I just thought that was a reference to him being a director, because a jib is like a thing you can put a camera on, and it's kind of like almost like a mini crane. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Deborah's character was Sash Ketter, and I know Sash a sash cord is something that Grips use on set, but I couldn't figure out what Keter was meaning. So I just thought that was cool, the names that they picked.
They're also very Star Wars names.
Yes.
Which is important. So they destroy the space station. Mando and Baby Yoda fly off into the not sunset of darkness of space. And Mando gives Baby Yoda the little ball from the lever in the cockpit. Like, that's his toy. And then the final scene of the episode is revealed that Mando didn't kill Mayfield Berg and Shion, but they're actually trapped in that prison cell on the ship. And that's the end. Which I think that references his code that he didn't want to kill. So, the Batman code or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know if I'm reading into it or not, but I still kept trying to reference who Mando was to who he is now, and whether or not, he would have just killed them, if it was 10 years ago or whenever he was that person. And so now he's got, a bit more of a ethics and moral code, and it reveals a little something about who he is. And I think the other thing that I've already kind of mentioned too is I did find some of those family themes present within the episode, and how Mando treats those he's adopted as family compared to specifically Quinn and Shion, who they're blood brother and sister, and yet Quinn has no qualms of leaving Shion behind. So to see those kind of things set up against each other was interesting to me. Another random point that I had in my notes was I really liked Mayfield's third robotic arm with the blaster on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I did have to laugh too, because it's, you see actors and stuff doing this all the time, and it was just funny because did you notice he was really like pumping his hands, like when he's shooting, and like puffing up his lips, like you could almost imagine like the little kid in him having so much fun. It reminded me of when they said that Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson, a lot of the actors in episode 1 especially, were all making the lightsaber sounds, and like it took like so much training for them to not do that while they were fighting. It's hard not to.
Cool. Any final thoughts, things that we missed in your guys' notes from the episode?
Well, I noticed that some of the names came from legends, Star Wars legends. So Shion was apparently a Jedi Knight who fought during the Clone Wars in Star Wars Legends, and she was killed by Aura Singh, who was, of course, Boba Fett's mentor. So that's a Legends connection to Mandalorians. And Ran actually was a pilot for the New Republic in Legends who gets caught up in a plot to kidnap Ben Skywalker. So that's cool. And then Zero. So there was a droid Zero in Legends who had kind of like a superiority complex, sort of like L337 that we see in the Solo movie, where droid Zero thinks that it's kind of like beneath him to serve sentient beings. So I guess in this Zero droid, we kind of got a little flavor of that with his kind of like my response time is quicker than organics, and I'm smarter too. He says that at the beginning. And then just another thing was, it's cool they had a Deveronian character, because we see that in canon in A New Hope, right? In the cantina, we see a Deveronian, but then in Legends, that same character that we see in the cantina ends up being like one of the galaxy's biggest bounties, and Boba Fett ends up capturing him. So I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up there was a joke that Mayfield, Bill Burr's character, mentioned about when he first sees Baby Yoda. He looks at Mando and Xi'an and says, "Did you guys make that?" So yeah, I thought it was funny, and it's like it was kind of sort of it was also shocking too, because in the world of Star Wars, there's not too many references to people having sexual relationships. So it's kind of like, whoa, did they just talk about that in Star Wars? So and Bill Burr was like obviously he would be the guy to crack a joke like that. So that was just something I remembered from the episode. But overall, again, we've talked about how this show, is obviously influenced by a lot of Westerns and anime. And it's sort of the nature of the show that we're finding out is like, it's obviously with Filoni's hand in it as well. It plays like an animated series. And like, now that we're getting closer to we're down to the last 2 episodes, the reactions I'm starting to see on Twitter and social media is like, it's starting to get a little more mixed on the show. You sort of have the side that will champion the show because of, whether it's just because of Baby Yoda or the people who are, just Filoni fanatics and stuff like that. Or like, I think our general consensus so far is that we're enjoying the show. And we, even though we agree maybe the plot's not progressing as fast as some other shows have done that are only 8 episodes in length for a season, we are noticing the little tidbits into his character, and maybe we're realizing this is more of a character study than a big plot, at least for season 1. But like Western shows and anime shows that it's taking a lot of influence from, those shows are usually like 1,000 episodes long, so they can afford to have these sort of filler episodes, where it's just these sort of one-off side adventures, and then they go and revisit the main storyline later on. But again, for such a short season length, I think that's where you're kind of seeing maybe some people maybe temper their expectations a little bit on the show. So it'll be interesting to see how with these last 2 they sort of revisit all the loose ends, obviously from chapter 5, figure out who we saw at the end there. Is it Giancarlo Esposito's character? We still haven't seen him. We thought he might be prominent this season, but still even haven't seen him on screen yet. So we'll have to wait and see, and we'll be there.
Yeah, and I don't really have anything to say than what you guys already pointed out, and that's what I was thinking too, as far as just my hope to see. Well, I think it has to happen really, to kind of see this whatever thread's been going through this, and kind of pull back and look at how it all starts to converge. And I did see no spoilers or anything, but I just saw some things here or there that seemed to suggest that I just lost her name, Cara Dune. I forget who's the actress again. I just lost it.
Gina.
Carano. Yeah, that she's coming back, and I know it'll be interesting because she was, I think, a really strong character, an interesting connection for him to have, someone who's a good sort of teammate in all this. And we know that we do know that Carl Weathers is still around. Right. So yeah, and some of the clips, like I remember just from the original trailer, are things that I remember seeing that were really cool in the trailer that haven't happened yet. So you can kind of just be like, okay, well, that has to come up in 7 and 8. So there's some fun stuff certainly to look forward to in the last 2 episodes. So looking forward to it.
Well, in the Rogue One trailer, we saw some things that we didn't ever see in the movie,
That's
so
true.
who knows?
That's true. And vice versa. There were lots of things that we didn't see that then showed up, like Baby Yoda, for example, for this. So who knows?
And we're obviously getting scenes with Carrie Fisher that we're not seeing in episode 7, but that will be in episode 9. So these things happen. And I'm also very curious to see what connection they make to Rise of Skywalker, because that's been heavily implied that there will be some connection. Can't be a huge connection, but there's going to be something. Well, but that's it from us. What did you think of episode 6 of The Mandalorian? Be sure to email us or comment on our Facebook or Twitter page and let us know. You can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com, and you can find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter at SQPN. We'd like to take a moment now and thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Wars, including Eric E., Brian S., Michael P., Brian K., and James H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows that we make here at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, of course, be sure to subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can also follow us on the SQPN YouTube channel. To find previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars, please visit sqpn.com/Star Wars. And we'll be back next week when we will be discussing the 7th episode of The Mandalorian. And so until then, Angela, Cialana, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
It was my pleasure. Thanks.
Mike Creevy, thanks for joining us, of course.
Always a pleasure.
And Andrew Hermes, thanks for joining us tonight.
Till next time.
Once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.